Oh boy. First time streaming on YouTube, and I have no idea if I am actually live or what is happening. I'm pretty sure I can stream at a higher rate than that. It says I'm unlisted. Does that mean no one can see my stream? I'm learning things live. Ba ba ba. Let me try changing this to public. It's very confusing that a stream can be set to unlisted. Does that mean no one can see it? What's the point of streaming then? Are you just streaming to your friends? Anyway, so I figured that my first stream on YouTube can be a little bit different than what I normally do. This is Roll for Question. This is a stream where I put myself out there as a veteran Dungeons and Dragons dungeon master. I've been playing the game for a long time, so I know a trick or two. And you're welcome to ask questions, and I will try and answer them. And in the meantime, I've selected a question that I see asked a lot around circles where newer players hang out and ask questions. And I figured that I would go ahead and take a stab at answering it here. And that question is, as a dungeon master, how many magic items should I be giving my players? And that, I want to say, is a common question, and it's a very understandable question for new players to ask. And it's a tricky question because there isn't actually a good answer. Well, there is a good answer. There isn't an easy answer. There isn't just a number that you can give. You can't just go in the book and the book won't be like 5. And if we go here to D&D Beyond, and I'm not logged in, these are just the free rules. We go for the Dungeon Master section, the section on magic items. I think awarding magic items. It actually does give numbers now. It didn't in the old edition, in the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide. There wasn't anything like this, but there is now. There were numbers like this in Xanathar's Guide. Now, if you're a new DM, should you go be using these numbers? No. I don't like these numbers. I don't think they're good numbers. Let me put 2 caveats to that, though. 1, if you're using these numbers, that's fine. The designers who made these numbers, that's fine. If you just need numbers and you don't care, like, use these numbers. That's totally fine. There is a world where these are the right numbers. And that world is if you are running a game exactly the way that the designers of Dungeons & Dragons expect you to be running it. In that case, here you go. Use these numbers. You're good. I don't think anyone does that. I don't think even if you're using a hardcover, I don't think you're running the game exactly the way the designers intended. And that's a good thing. You are owning the game. You're making it your own. And the designers want you to do that. And you should be doing that. So these numbers are at best, they're a bit fuzzy in terms of how correct they are. And it's important for us to really understand at a deeper level how many magic items we should be giving out to answer that question. If we just say 10, well, why not 11? There's no good answer to that. Why not 9? Like, let's dig into that question. Yeah. So D&D is a game with a very long tradition. And one of those traditions is to leave things up for the DM to figure out. Because there's a little secret about Dungeons & Dragons. The game in the book doesn't exist. It's not a game. The game that you're playing at the table, the game that you, the Dungeon Master, bring to the table, is your own interpretation of this non-existent game in the book. And that's been the case since the very, very beginning of Dungeons & Dragons. Now, there are a lot of similarities that you'd expect between table and table that allow us to share our experiences. we're all making characters. We're all elves and dwarves, and we're wizards and fighters and whatnot, and we're fighting orcs and goblins and I don't know. But you will find that if you listen to someone's gameplay, you will very quickly discover that their DM is doing something unique, different, something that puts their game apart from everyone else. We're playing with this house rule. Wizards need to have like they need mana, and they need to have like jars of honey to cast spells, and the fighter can do like backflips in combat. You know, there's small things, and then there's big things like, oh, okay, we're actually we're all actually been transported to this other world, and we're this entirely different group of outworlders, and we're in this alien world, blah blah blah. And that's totally normal. It's totally normal to make a game like that. That makes it very difficult for the designers to give good advice on how you run your game. How many magic items do you give the table that has everyone from another world? Like maybe this dungeon master's introduced electricity and firearms and I don't know, tanks, like actual roaming vehicles with treads and stuff. Yeah, I don't 10. That's the answer. 10. Good luck, have fun. That makes it really hard to answer that question. And so the thing is, that doesn't stop new DMs from asking the question, and it is a fair question, because there is a wrong answer to that question. You know, I'm not saying that there's a universal wrong answer, but for some games, you can't give too many magic items out, and that's bad. And for other games, you can give too few out, equally bad. So this question does need to be thought about. It's a deep topic at play here. So, what's wrong with these numbers? I mean, there's technically nothing wrong with them. If you want to just use them, and then if they're wrong for your game, you can change them. That's fine. But let's think about why these numbers in particular. What is it about magic items that makes us want to give them out? What is it about magic items that are vital for your game? I mean, they're not vital, but like, what is it that makes them fun for your game? And there's also an element of like, as a dungeon master, I like giving them out. Not just because it's fun for the players, but because I personally enjoy giving them out. Because I like to make custom magic items, and I like to see what the party does with them. And I like to see, here's some cool, interesting stuff that they do. Like, I don't care if they're not having fun. If they use something in a cool way, I'm having fun. And that's fine. Don't forget about scrolls and potions. That's absolutely true. Those also play a role. I think those fall under what are common magic items. But yes. But first we need to understand, or we need to flesh out, why are we adding magic items to begin with? So and there's a few buckets to think about here. There's magic items that have narrative impact. So like the One Ring, that's an extreme example. That like Excalibur or whatever. These are items that you add them to the game because they matter in the story. That's usually not what we're talking about, but it's important to recognize that those are a class of items. More often than not, magic items have a mechanical value to the game. So like a +1 sword is better than a like non-magical sword because it's +1. You add 1 to all your rolls. That's why you're adding it. There is some sort of, I don't want to say balancing factor, but there is a you give out these magic items to make the players feel like they can accomplish things that they otherwise couldn't. So with a magic weapon, now there's a lot of monsters whose damage resistances you can bypass now. You know, the options open up. There's also magic items that are just fun. They're not useful, and they're useful, but they're not like, it's not obvious how they're useful. Like the alchemy jug or the apparatus of Qualish. Like these are fun items. I don't know what value your party might have in creating a bunch of mayonnaise, or if you have a decanter of endless water, what are you going to do with 1,000 gallons of water? You know, that's for the players to figure out. I'd also put the deck of many things in this bucket as well. You know, you give the deck of many things out, and then that's the game. The rest of the game is just, we got a deck of many things. I don't care what else is happening. We're going to be pulling cards for the next 4 hours. So we need to capture those points with when we're giving out magic items. So I want to focus on the mechanical aspects of magic items, because I think the narrative impact is obvious, and we don't really need to say like you must have X number of narrative magic items for a game to be good. That's completely arbitrary. I think the mechanical benefit is probably the most straightforward argument for giving a specific number of how many magic items. So let's think about what is the purpose of the mechanical benefit of magic items. I'm going to argue that it's not the math. The math is not what makes the magic item fun. And to sort of make that point, I'm going to ask, what is more fun? In your mind, you have 2 magic items, a +2 sword and a +3 sword. Which is more fun? And if your immediate answer is, well, the +3 sword is more fun, why does the +2 sword exist then? Why don't we just go straight to the +3 sword? It's more fun. Like, it seems like we're holding ourselves back. Is there a balance reason we don't have all magic weapons be +3? I'd argue there is not, because the designers could have easily made the game so that the +3 sword is the baseline mechanical situation for a magic item. But there's an easier, simple explanation. And I'll get into it by asking another question. Why don't we just start Dungeons and Dragons at maximum level? You know, some games do start at max level. They start at level 20, and that's fine. That's totally fine. But most games, you start at a low level. You start at like level 2, level 3. You go up and build up to max level, or whatever level the campaign is set for. And why do we do that? Leveling up is fun. It's just straight fact. It's fun. It's fun to go from level 2 to level 3. You unlock new abilities, get new powers. Your character grows. And that's fun. That's directly fun. And that gets back to our statement about magic items. +2 swords exist because it's fun to put them aside to get a +3 sword. But that's not a mechanical benefit. Or, I mean, it is a mechanical benefit. But that's not... That explains why we don't just have only +3 weapons. Yes, a chance to develop the character. I'm going to call that growth. It's your character's agency increasing in the game. That is what we find fun. That is, on some level, that is just the core of what makes an RPG fun. You start small, you get powerful, and you get even more powerful, and you unlock new abilities, which let you do things you couldn't do before, which you can use to solve problems that maybe even the DM didn't think you could solve. And that's fun. Level ups, that's a form of growth. Gaining magic items, that's a form of growth. They're the same story. All of the same things apply. Now, that's a core part of why you don't start with magic items, why they're not in the character creation manual. Like, I know a lot of games, especially if they don't start at low level, they will give you magic items as a form of compensation, and that's fine. But it's not the same joy as earning them, discovering them, getting them as a reward. I would even argue that I've played in games where you get a magic item, you choose your starting magic item, and that's fun because it is an opportunity for you to express your character through the choice of magic item. But in a game where you're just given a magic, like, welcome to the game, you're level 6, here's a +2 wand, and here's a scroll of fireball. Like, okay, that's fine. You write that down and you forget about it. You know, that's not fun. Being able to choose, fun. Being given magic items as a reward through growth, fun. Different kinds of fun, but still fun. Growth is the key. That is what you are trying to aim for as a dungeon master with magic items and other things. Growth, it's important to note, needs pacing. If you grow too fast, it doesn't feel good. You won't get used to what you have. Your character will feel like you just get numb to it. You need to get used to what you have before you should be leveling up. You know, if you level up every hour, that's way too fast. You know, you'll level up 3-4 times in a session. That's no good. You'll probably hit max level way too early. You'll run out of the ability to grow long before you hit the end of the story, and the game will start to feel like a slog. At the same time, if you grow too slow, same problem. The game just feels like a slog. You've just been at the same level for too long. You haven't gained anything, and you know, the story can carry those games. Sometimes it can't, and if it doesn't, then people start to lose interest. So, back to our original question, how many magic items do we want? Well, it depends on how much growth we need to be giving the players. So, that's a fun question because there is an element of every DM is running their own game. They have their own tone to their own game. They have their own style, and they have their own story plans. Or maybe they don't have a story plan at all, and they're just vibing, and that's totally fine. So that makes the answer to this question not universal either. But I will say that it is important to have growth most sessions. So not every session, because that's probably too, like, people get used to that. It's okay to have a session where everyone finishes the same level. They didn't get super cool treasure. They didn't get an awesome ally. They didn't get like a castle, you know. It's just a session, you know. That's allowed to happen. But it should happen often. At least every other session. You could futz with those numbers a little, but you don't want to have it where you've got multiple sessions happening where no growth happens, because there is a good chance that the players start to feel like it's a slog, and it's possible for your game to make up for that through just how great of a story it is, or how awesome of a narrative, like how cool how much everyone enjoys, like, just being at the table with each other. Like, there are reasons for people to enjoy a game other than growth, but you know, you do want the game, you do want the characters to grow. And the numbers, why do I say those numbers? That's just a vibe I got, you know. I've been playing a long time. I don't really know any studies or know of any evidence that, like, your players should be leveling up every other session. Like, I've never seen any study like that. I've never seen any play test like that. And the thing is, I bet that it varies from player to player. I bet that varies from dungeon master to dungeon master. And so if you're a new player, try out these numbers. And if you don't like them, change them up. And I kind of say the same to the numbers. It's the same story with the numbers in the basic rules here on screen. Try these numbers out. I wouldn't say that they're the right numbers, but try them out and then go from there. And you know what? Once you've played it, once you've ran a game or two, you'll have a perspective and you can bring it to the table. And you can let me know how it goes. And maybe the rest of us can learn. I know there's a wide variety of games out there. There's a wide variety of game lengths, campaigns that last years versus campaigns that last weeks. Each game has its own pacing, and each game is going to have its own opinion. And I know there's games where the group swears by magic items being rare, and or level ups being rare, and or other things being rare, and that's fine. That's not a problem. But you've got to have some form of growth, even if you want to say we're a low magic game. I'm not going to have magic items. We're going to try and be realistic, so we're going to ease up on the levels. We're going to try and keep the party as close to peasants as possible, and you know, that's fine, but you've still got to have some growth. You've still got to have the players getting rewards, accomplishing things, making connections, progressing the story. You don't want them to be peasants the whole story, unless you've got like, I mean, I don't know. Unless you can really, really carry that story. Anyway, so with that context in mind, we can say how many magic items you should give. You should give them based on how much growth the characters need to receive, the players need to receive. And that depends on things like how many level ups are they getting, how many other rewards are they getting, like connections, allies, vehicles, other stuff. How much narrative growth, how much other growth is going on, and then you should have magic items fill the gap, and it's a good gap filler. Don't feel bad if you feel like you need to give magic items out to keep the game interesting. Like, that's what they're there for, and it's fun. Trust me. But don't at the same time feel obligated that you have to give out magic items. Your players could be having fun even if you've given out nothing for 10 sessions, because there's all sorts of other things going on. And so there's also a side question that this kind of drills into. When you're giving out magic items, how powerful should they be? Because remember, we want pacing. So let's keep that in mind. And from that perspective, I recommend starting with the small stuff. You know, the +1 weapons, the scrolls of web, the potions of healing, small potions of healing. You know, build up to the higher stuff. If you break out the best stuff in the earliest sessions, like if you start giving out like supreme healing potions, and you start giving out scrolls of disintegrate, and the Vorpal swords, and the +3 armor of I can't think of one off the top of my head. You give that out. What are you going to give out the next couple of sessions? Like, how are you going to escalate from there? Because if you give out magic items that are weaker than that, they're just going to get put aside. They're going to get put in a bag. They're going to be forgotten. They are not going to be considered by the players. It's not good. That's why you start small. Now, don't worry about feeling like you need to hit certain metrics because the players expect to be... The players feel like they're entitled to certain magic items. Don't feel like we're level 10, so any magic item that's not +3 is basically the DM being mean. Don't acknowledge that, because that's not true. Even if the party is like level 20 and they don't have a magic item, give them a +1 first. Give them a +2 first. Although if they're level 20, you're probably at the end of the campaign. If they're level 15 it's still okay to give them a +1 weapon if they don't have anything. I don't entirely know how you get to that position in the first place, but if you do, that's how it is. The game is fine if you give out +1 weapons at level 15, and then build up to the +2 and the +3. You know, don't feel like you have to give into what the players expect. I mean, the players want to level up. They want big weapons. You know, that's totally natural for them to want that. You know, and it's your responsibility as the DM to make sure they eventually get it, but they don't. They get to get it at the right time, not when they want it. You know. So yeah. So there's another question. What magic items should I be giving out? Oh boy, that's a deep question, you know? That's a really deep one. Because I was listing out the various options up there. Narrative, mechanical, wild card, and it depends on the tone of your game, on what you're trying to set. I do find that a balance of magic items is good because you are giving them out to the players so that they're having fun, but you're also giving them out for yourself. Or at least when I give them out, I'm giving them out for me too, because I want to see some mayhem happen. So a balance is good. Sometimes give out that ring of power because you want to see what the party's going to do with it, because you've got a lot of planned for what they're going to have to deal with because they have it, you know? That gives you the opportunity to start sending some ring wraiths or whatever. Give out the +1 swords. Party will thank you for it. They'll have fun. It's that simple. Give out the alchemy jugs because you'll have fun. You get to see ingenuity in action with those kind of items. Now, there is also another avenue for another reason to give out magic items. If the party is struggling, and this is in particular when you give out healing potions, give those out. Give them out. If the party needs them, give them. You know, simple as that. Consumable. Don't be worried about if the party wants the magic item, but do be worried about the party not feeling like, if you give them a +1 weapon that is something that everyone reasonably expects them to use. Like if you give the rogue a +1 short sword or a +1 rapier, yeah, rogues use rapiers. That's totally fine. But if you give them a dagger, no one expects them to use that, and it's kind of it's gonna land a bit differently if you go down that path. If you say, here's a magic item, but it's not as good as your current weapon, but it's a magic item, you know, so there's a trade-off, that doesn't hit the same as, here's a weapon, it's better than your current weapon, you're welcome, you know. That's growth. The other one is what's the word? It's escaping my head right now. A choice? And that is, it's not bad, but it's definitely not growth. It is something else. So just keep that in mind. When you're giving out magic items, make sure that they are actually meant to be better. They're actually something that the party will use and not something that the party has to think about using. You know? I think a better example might be like, if the fighter is in full plate and you give them +2 chainmail, I think the full plate is still better. So, even though it's a +2 chainmail, you know, whoop, big whoop. I don't actually remember what chainmail is off the top of my head. Anyway, yeah. Parallel question. How often should my party be leveling up? That's a deep question. It's a deeper question, honestly, than the magic item question. And it is an even more common question I hear among the new players than the magic item one. And a lot of what we said feeds directly into that. You got to make sure the players are growing. You got to make sure that the narrative is escalating. You know, it's fun to be fighting kobolds for a while, and then it gets old, and you want to be able to start moving up to ogres. You want to start being able to move up to. You want to start fighting the fun stuff like dragons and beholders and stuff, and you're not doing that unless you start leveling your party up. But obviously, at the same time, you don't just go, boom, level 7, boom, level 8, boom, level 9, boom, level 10. You know? You still want the party to feel like they earned it. And it's all about pacing. It's all about making that growth come at the right pace, come at the right, in a way that matches the story, in a way that matches the gameplay, in a way that matches what you want to run, honestly. If you want to be able to send, like, if you want kobolds to be 80% of the encounters for a very long time, you don't want to level up the party too fast to get them to the point where like kobolds are boring. So you'll probably want to level up slower versus a game where you're like, I want this game to be about dragon politics, and I want the party to raid dragon hordes, and I want the party to, I don't know, to go in dungeons and fight demons and go to all sorts of planes and stuff. You know, if you want to go into that stuff, you don't want the party to be level 3 when they're doing that, because it just doesn't make sense. Like, a level 3 party would not be plane hopping. They would not survive very long. So you got to get them there. You probably want to level them up a little faster. And what's the precise number? So there's something I can point to. This doesn't work in Dungeons and Dragons very well, but it works better in other games. But there's something in this game called experience points that a lot of people don't use. And I don't blame you, because I don't use them either. But the purpose of those is actually to tell you, the dungeon master, how fast the player should be leveling up. That is the actual purpose of it. That is why there's all these numbers in the monster manual for you to use. Like, it's not just like, it's not there for balance. There's no reason why it takes. I do not know how much experience it takes off the top of my head. I know it takes 300 experience to get to level 2. And I think it takes 1,000 experience to get to level 3. And then after that, my experience numbers get fuzzy. Those numbers are arbitrary. They are completely arbitrary. They are not based on tradition. Oh, it's 900. I'm sorry. These are not based in tradition, because I know in earlier editions it took way more experience to level up. These numbers are completely arbitrary, and they are there to serve you, the dungeon master, and the players. They are also there to sell the players on the pacing of the game. You know, I'll explain that in a minute. But these numbers, that's there for you. They tell you when the party should be leveling up. They're not good. They're not useful. I don't recommend them. I haven't seen any other game that has a successful experience system use numbers like these. The numbers are a lot smaller. They're not based on stabbing monsters, which is a bit specific. Like, a kobold is 50 experience. I don't actually know how much experience a kobold is. A kobold is a set amount of experience. How much experience is it to pick a lock? I don't know. That's probably, it might be in the book somewhere. I don't know, but I could not tell you. I don't think anyone can tell you because, but that kind of stuff should give experience if it's challenging. And it doesn't, and that's why I don't like this. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I don't like this. There's several reasons why I don't like experience points. But anyway, you use this system, it will tell you when you need to level up. Now, obviously, if you're not using the system, it can't tell you anything. So what I would recommend for new players is to keep track of this number privately. And I mean, don't tell the players, but keep track of it privately, and then just see where the math says you should be leveling up, and then go from there. And there's a good chance you don't like what you get, and if you don't, then change the pace to be what you want. So like, if you run through these numbers and you realize it takes about 3 sessions to go from level 2 to level 3, and you do that, and you don't like it, well then don't do that. You know, make it take 2 sessions or 1 session, so on and so forth. If you stick with these numbers, I bet you will find that it's too slow. But I could be wrong. Could be wrong. I mean, I know lots of games that use experience points, and they have fun, so I think it's too slow. I do not appreciate it. What I like to do in my games is I like to aim for about a little less than every other session leveling up. And that is not a constant. Like, I really recommend going from level 1 to level 2 in 1 session, and going from level 2 to level 3 in 1 session. Because level 1 really sucks, and level 2 really sucks. And if you just want to start at level 3, you know, that's pretty reasonable. That's pretty normal. You don't want to level up too fast. Not just because of pacing, but also because leveling up takes time. Your players need time to level up, and they also need time to get used to their character. And if you level up too fast, you're going to be spending more time leveling up than actually playing the game. And maybe you can get your players to level up between sessions. If you can do that, sure. Great. If you have players that forget, especially because new players may not be confident enough to level up on their own, they may want to have you at hand to ask questions. Yeah, it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to soak up a lot of your time as the DM. It's going to soak up a lot of game time. Yeah, a little less than every other session. I think that's a good pace. At least that's a good starting point. I don't know. I feel like that is a topic that I could dig down deeper into, for sure, if I thought about it. But I don't really have notes. I don't really have many thoughts on leveling up pace, but maybe you do. Let me know what you think. I don't know why I'm scrolling up. Yeah, I will just go back to these numbers because I had one more thought. One more thought about the magic item tracker. So you'll note that it separates out the magic items you get by rarity. And that's very curious because if you go through all of the magic items in the game, rarity isn't really a good judge of how good a magic item is. Now, in general, a very rare item is better than a rare item. A rare item is better than an uncommon item, and an uncommon item is better than a common item. But If you take two random uncommon items, one of them's likely to be better than the other. If you take two random rare items, one of them's likely to be better than the other. So on and so forth. Legendary items are usually pretty bonkers. 9 legendary magic items is... I just don't agree with that. But the point that I'm trying to make is you've got these numbers here, and even if you assume that they're correct, you still have variance. You can still award 17 uncommon magic items that all suck. Or you could award 17 uncommon magic items that are way too good, and you've just like given out way more power than the designers expected you to. That makes it a little harder to judge how many items you should actually be giving out. Because if you give out 10 mediocre items, are the players having more fun than if you give out one really amazing item? I mean, depends on how amazing that item is and how mediocre those 10 are. But if you give out 10 magic items and the players are like, let's sell these 10 items. I'd rather have gold. If you give out one magic item that's like crazy, yeah. That's not captured here in this number, and it needs to be. It needs to be. And the reason it needs to be is the whole point of this tracker being separated out by these tiers by rarity is because the game is trying to encourage you to pace your magic items. You know? There's a reason you don't start with legendaries. There's a reason you don't start with those. There's a reason you don't even start with rare items that really. You go common and uncommon. And common aren't really... Just pretend common aren't real. Like, that's just health potions. Health potions and memes. You know? And then later on, you don't get uncommon anymore. You barely get rares. I mean, most of your items are very rare or legendary by the time you're at max level. That's because the game is trying to tell you to pace out your magic items. And this is at expressing that, you know? Anyway, that was my last thought on this question. I have no more notes. There are definitely many, 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 many more questions that I see from new players getting asked all the time that I would love to do a future talk about. But for now, that is it for me. I will... If you've got any questions that you'd like a veteran DM to take a stab at answering, feel free to ask them to me in the comments. I will respond either in the comments or maybe make a video. Yeah, that is where I will leave it then. Take care, everyone. Hope you're having a good day. Have good games. Bye, y'all.